Read this sentence slowly, because it's not from a thriller novel, it's from an active U.S. government travel alert right now, this week. Quote, U.S. diplomatic facilities, including outside the Middle East, have been targeted. Not might be targeted, have been. That's the State Department's own language, in a worldwide caution that's been renewed and re-renewed as the conflict with Iran grinds into its fourth month, with airspace closures rippling out from the Middle East and reaching travelers who've never set foot anywhere near it. And here's what's happening behind the scenes that almost nobody outside the travel industry has noticed yet. Travel agents are quietly steering clients away from the usual bucket list destinations and toward what's being called informally, quote, fortress countries, places like New Zealand, Iceland, and Switzerland, geographically insulated, politically neutral. About as far from a flashpoint as a person can get on this planet. Now here's the question nobody's asking, and it's the one that actually matters if you're retired or about to be. If you're living overseas or thinking about it on a Social Security check, can you actually get into one of these so-called fortress countries? We checked. The answer surprised us, and it's not the answer the travel industry is selling. Stay with us, because by the time we get to number one, you're going to hear about a country with a global reputation for being almost boringly safe and stable, one that almost no retirement channel on this platform has covered, and it might be the smartest move on this entire list. Here's exactly how we built this. Gov, not a second-hand summary of it. We cross-referenced the 2026 Global Peace Index, the gold standard ranking from the Institute for Economics and Peace, covering 163 countries. We went into the actual immigration ministry websites for every country on this list to verify visa thresholds as they exist today, in 2026, not 3 years ago. And we checked something almost nobody bothers to check. Whether the, quote, safest countries everyone's suddenly talking about actually have a legal pathway in for someone living on a fixed income. Spoiler, for 3 of the most hyped ones, they basically don't. We're going to tell you exactly why, and then show you where the real opportunity is. The Fortress 3. What the travel industry is sent telling retirees. Before the countdown, we need to deal with the 3 names everyone's currently throwing around. Because if you've seen any of the quote-unquote safest places in the world right now, content flooding the internet this month, these 3 keep coming up, and none of them work the way you'd hope for a retiree on Social Security. New Zealand, consistently inside the top 3 or 4 most peaceful countries on Earth. Gorgeous, English-speaking, about as far from any conflict zone as a flight can take you. Here's the catch nobody mentions in the same breath as fortress destination. New Zealand does not have a retirement visa in the way Panama or Costa Rica does. The 2 real pathways are the parent resident visa, which requires an adult child who's already a New Zealand citizen or resident, plus an investment north of $600,000, or the temporary retirement visitor visa, which requires you to be at least 66, invest roughly $500,000 in New Zealand for 2 years, prove another $350,000 to live on, and show an annual income near $42,000. That's not a retirement plan. That's a net worth requirement. Switzerland. Famously stable, famously secure, ranked inside the top 5 safest countries on the planet almost every single year. The retiree pathway for non-EU citizens, called the Permit B for non-gainful employment, requires you to be 55 or older, show sufficient independent means, which in practice usually means access to multiple millions of Swiss francs, and prove close personal ties to Switzerland before you even apply. The alternative, lump sum taxation, is built for the genuinely wealthy. The federal minimum taxable base alone sits north of $480,000 a year. This is not a Social Security retirement plan. It's a private banking client profile. And Iceland, the single most peaceful country in the world by Global Peace Index ranking for over a decade running. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Outside of EU and EFTA citizens, Iceland does not offer a retirement visa or an independent means residency category at all. Immigration lawyers who specialize in this will tell you directly there's no standard pathway for a financially independent retiree from the US, the way there is almost everywhere else on this list. Family reunification is virtually the sole avenue, and that necessitates a close relative already residing there. So what is the point of mentioning these three individuals in the first place? Because the travel industry's, quote, fortress destination narrative is built for tourists with disposable income and open-ended timelines, not for someone trying to stretch a Social Security check into a permanent, legal, affordable new life. The good news is that real fortress destinations for retirees do exist. They're just not the three everyone's currently talking about. Here they are, 5 to 1. Number 5, Malta. We're back on this small Mediterranean island nation, but for a different reason than affordability this time, for safety. Malta is a full EU member state, which means it sits inside the broader European security architecture, with a stable democratic government, low violent crime, and a justice system that functions the way you'd expect from a Western European country, because that's effectively what it is. English is an official language here, a holdover from over 150 years as a British colony, so you're never navigating an embassy appointment or a hospital visit in a language you don't speak. Malta also consistently ranks among the most progressive and safest countries in the world for LGBTQ+ travelers and residents, a meaningful data point for anyone weighing genuine social safety, not just freedom from armed conflict. The numbers: a furnished, one-bedroom runs $400 to $600 a month. A restaurant meal with wine costs $10 to $15, and a single retiree can live on roughly $1,300 to $1,500. Malta taxes foreign-sourced retirement income at a flat 15%, which is remarkably favorable. Healthcare is ranked top 10 in Europe by the World Health Organization. The catch: Malta is just 26 square miles, and that small footprint means rising European expat demand is pushing rents up faster than almost anywhere else in the Mediterranean. The residency application moves slowly and bureaucratically, and direct flights from the US are essentially non-existent. You're connecting at least once every time you go home. The verdict: genuine EU-level institutional safety, English language ease, and a tax rate that should embarrass the US system, if you're willing to plan around the rising costs and the slow paperwork. Number 4 takes the safety conversation to a country that hasn't had a standing army since 1948, by deliberate, constitutional design. Number 4, Costa Rica. Here's a fact that should reframe how you think about this entire country. Costa Rica abolished its military in 1948 and redirected that spending into education, healthcare, and environmental protection instead. That decision, sustained for nearly 80 years, is a big part of why Costa Rica ranks 39th globally on the 2026 Global Peace Index, comfortably the highest-ranked country in Central America, ahead of every neighbor on the isthmus. The Pensionado visa requires just $1,000 a month in lifetime pension income, easily covered by an average Social Security check, with no minimum age and a path to permanent residency after 3 years. Costa Rica has also rolled out the Red Sofia program specifically focused on women's safety in tourism and daily life, a detail that matters if you're retiring solo. The honest cost picture. Rent in the popular expat zones runs $700 to $1,000 a meal. Out costs $8 to $15, and a single retiree comfortably budgets $1,600 to $2,000 a month in the towns most Americans actually choose. Paja, the public healthcare system, costs 7 to 11% of your declared income but delivers care ranked among the best in Latin America, 5 times higher than Uruguay's. Petty theft in tourist-heavy areas is real and worth basic precautions. And there's active discussion in the Costa Rican government about raising that $1,000 income threshold, with no promise that current retirees get grandfathered in. The verdict: a country that built peace into its constitution, paired with healthcare that holds up against anywhere in the hemisphere, as long as you treat safe as safest in a real region, not zero risk anywhere. Number 3 runs on the same currency that's already in your wallet and ranks just behind Costa Rica as the second safest country in its entire region. Number 3, Panama. If Costa Rica is Central America's safety leader, Panama is its steady, internationally connected runner-up, ranked roughly 58th globally on the 2026 Global Peace Index, with a lower homicide rate on a single measure than Costa Rica itself. Panama uses the US dollar as legal currency, fixed 1-to-1 with its own Balboa, which means your Social Security deposit and your grocery bill are speaking the same language, with zero currency risk ever. The Pensionado visa requires just $1,000 a month in lifetime pension income and grants permanent residency immediately, not after years of renewals. Law 6 layers on legally mandated retiree discounts across restaurants, medicine, utilities, and travel. Panama City itself functions like a modern, secure, internationally connected capital, with gated communities and round-the-clock security comparable to a major Florida city. Most retirees, though, choose the highland town of Boquete or beach communities like Coronado, where a furnished place runs $300 to $500 a month, and a single retiree lives well on $1,000 to $1,400. The catch: that overall safety ranking has real local variation, with isolated hotspots in Colón province and parts of Panama City worth avoiding. The rainy season, May through December, brings serious downpours and occasional flooding outside the main hubs. And Boquete and Coronado are getting discovered fast, with prices climbing every year you wait. The verdict: a dollar-based economy, a fast, generous visa, and a regional safety ranking right behind Costa Rica, Panama gives you nearly everything the fortress narrative promises without the 7-figure investment requirement attached to it. Number 2 sits inside the actual top 10 of the Global Peace Index, genuinely in the company of Iceland, Switzerland, and New Zealand, but with a visa threshold your Social Security check already clears. Number 2, Portugal. This is where the fortress destination conversation and the realistic retirement conversation finally overlap. Portugal sits inside the actual top 10 most peaceful countries on Earth according to the 2026 Global Peace Index, in the same company as Iceland, New Zealand, Switzerland, and Slovenia. It's also a NATO member and a full EU state, which means its security is backed by the same alliance structure protecting the rest of Western Europe. The D7 visa, Portugal's passive income visa, requires proof of just €920 a month, roughly $1,000. The average Social Security check clears that with hundreds of dollars to spare. What you get in return is full EU residency, visa-free Schengen travel across 172 countries, and access to Portugal's public healthcare system. Where you live matters. The Algarve coast is gorgeous and increasingly expensive. $1,800 to $2,800 a month for a couple. Central Portugal, towns like Coimbra and Viseu, runs closer to $1,500 to $2,200 for a couple, putting a single retiree comfortably under $1,500. Public health care through the SNS is free once you're registered. The catch: Portugal's immigration agency, AIMA, has a backlog that's become a genuine running joke among expats, with appointments and renewals routinely dragging months longer than scheduled. Costs in the popular coastal towns are climbing fast, and a 2026 update to the nationality law extended the path to citizenship for most applicants out to 10 years. The verdict: real top 10 global peacefulness, NATO and EU backing, and a visa threshold your Social Security check clears with room to spare. Portugal is the closest thing on this entire list to an actual fortress you can legally move into on a fixed income. And now, number 1. The country almost nobody on this platform is covering, sitting at the literal top of South America's safety rankings, with a nickname that tells you everything before we even get to the numbers. Number 1. Uruguay. Ask 10 people what country is, quote, South America's Switzerland, and the ones who know Latin America will say Uruguay without hesitating. It's not a marketing slogan, it's earned. Uruguay consistently ranks as the single safest country in South America on the Global Peace Index, ahead of Chile, ahead of Argentina, and not remotely close to the regional instability that dominates headlines about Venezuela or parts of Colombia. This is a country with a long, uninterrupted democratic tradition, a neutral, low-drama foreign policy, and political institutions that function quietly in the background instead of making international news. Montevideo feels less like a Latin American capital wrestling with crime and more like a calm, European-influenced city that happens to sit on the Rio de la Plata. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting for retirees. Uruguay's residency framework, locals call it the Rentista or Pensionado pathway, grants full, permanent residency immediately from day one, no temporary phase. No multi-year wait to upgrade your status the way you'd face almost everywhere else in Latin America. The threshold is the highest income requirement on this entire list, roughly $1,500 a month in verifiable pension or passive income, but the average Social Security check clears it. As of January 2026, Uruguay also rolled out an updated tax holiday that exempts new residents from tax on most foreign source income for up to 10 years. The cost picture sits in the middle of the pack regionally. Not as cheap as Ecuador or Colombia, but the safety, infrastructure, and institutional stability you're buying with that extra spending is real. A one-bedroom in a value neighborhood like Cordon or Tres Cruces runs $600 to $900 a month, climbing to $850 to $1,300 in the premium coastal areas like Pocitos, where most retirees actually want to live. A single retiree comfortably budgets around $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Healthcare runs through a private hospital membership system called Mutualista, offering comprehensive care without the restrictions Americans are used to fighting through. The catch, and it's a real one, that $1,500 income floor is the highest visa threshold on this entire list, so this isn't the destination for someone stretching every last dollar. English is genuinely uncommon outside of a few Montevideo neighborhoods, more so than almost anywhere else we've covered, so expect a real adjustment period. The 22% VAT means everyday purchases cost more than the sticker price suggests. And Uruguay isn't going to hand you the cheapest version of Latin American retirement. It's going to hand you the safest one. The verdict. If what you actually want from fortress destination content is genuine institutional stability, a functioning democracy, and a government that isn't making headlines for the wrong reasons, paired with a visa that doesn't require a six-figure investment, Uruguay is, quietly, the real answer. It's just never the one anyone puts in a thumbnail. Five real safe havens and 3 hyped ones that don't actually work for a retiree on a fixed income. Malta hands you EU-level institutional safety and a 15% flat tax if you can absorb rising rents on a 26-square-mile island. Costa Rica built peace into its constitution back in 1948 and still leads Central America's safety rankings today. Panama runs on the same dollar already in your wallet and grants permanent residency immediately. Portugal sits inside the actual top 10 safest countries on Earth, NATO-backed. With a visa threshold, your social security check clears easily. And Uruguay, South America's Switzerland, delivers the kind of quiet, boring, functioning democracy that the fortress destination trend is really chasing, without demanding a fortune to get in the door. Here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath all of this. The world genuinely is less stable right now than it's been in years. That worldwide caution alert isn't theater, and the conflict driving it isn't resolved. But less stable globally doesn't mean no safe options exist. It means the easy, lazy answer, Iceland, Switzerland, New Zealand, because everyone's suddenly saying those names, isn't actually accessible to most retirees. The real answer takes a little more digging, and apparently that's exactly why nobody's done it yet. We've also done the harder, less comfortable research. The countries that looked perfectly fine 2 years ago and have quietly become genuinely risky for retirees living there right now, and the places where the welcome Americans used to get is visibly cooling off. That video is right there on your screen, and if you're seriously planning a move abroad, it might matter just as much as this one.